welcome to the February 8th, 2023 City Council work session. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. And I thank you all for joining us. And with that, I call this meeting to order, and I will turn it over to the manager.
Thank you, Mayor. We're back again to talk about Parks and Recreation, which is a lot of our beloved activities and places in this community. And we have a great team here to just walk you through new information from our last meeting, which I think was just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I'll turn it over to Craig.
All right. Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, Mayor and City Council, for allowing us to come here. My name is Craig Carnegie. I'm with the Parks and Open Space Division, and I'm here with Twyla Miller with Finance and Craig Smith, Recreation. And we're here to talk about funding options for a levy renewal and your consideration to approve one of the options presented today with direction to bring this option back to you in a levy renewal resolution to place on the May ballot. Today, the numbers that we're going to be using, we're going to be talking about, are the actual net numbers of the levy, which create the service level. Twyla will share the gross numbers, which would actually be the amount voted on by the electorate. So currently, we're in the final months of a 5-year operating levy, which has provided $3.1 million annually for park safety, park maintenance, and recreation facility operations since 2018. This levy ends June 30th of this year, along with the corresponding services it provides. And those services that were included in the 2018 Parks Levy were park safety, including park ambassadors and EPD park resource officers, security patrols, and other security measures such as guardian camera trailers. It also included maintenance for developed parks or neighborhood and community parks. And this has allowed us to increase park custodial services, reopen restrooms previously closed due to budget cuts, increase restroom cleaning frequencies, as well as the frequencies of emptying garbage cans, and just general cleaning in heavily used areas of our parks. Also allowed us to increase landscape and tree care, from turf care and mowing frequencies, general horticulture, hazardous tree abatement, and tree planting. We've seen an increase in minor park infrastructure repairs, irrigation systems, broken sidewalks, lighting. We've been able to add some park furnishings such as benches and trash cans. Also has allowed us to increase our service levels along trails and natural areas. So trail resurfacing, invasive weed control, wildfire risk reduction, native habitat enhancements. And then also, very importantly, funds to clean up vacant camps and parks and other associated litter and debris, graffiti removal as well, and vandalism repair. The 2018 levy was also very intertwined with the 2018 Parks and Recreation Facilities Capital Bond by providing maintenance funding for several new parks as they were developed and help with the operating costs of a newly renovated community center and 2 swimming pools. Now, we've provided you with annual reports for 4 years running about the positive outcomes that we've seen from this levy funding. We've also shared results from our annual Park Services Satisfaction Survey, which shows the community appreciates these positive outcomes as well. It's clear that this community highly values parks and holds expectations for the condition parks should be operated and maintained. And to us, essentially, this means safe, clean, and green. So at a work session back in October 19th, I believe, we brought 3 levy renewal funding options for you to review. Option 1 in the dark blue column titled 2018 was the original funding amount, and it keeps the funding and tax rate the same level as the original 2018 levy. But due to inflationary cost increases and other growing challenges, it really equates to a service level drop from the original objectives of the 2018 levy. Some contractual services and materials and supplies would be cut if this were an option, and it doesn't fund maintenance for additional future parks coming online over the next several years, or the expanded rec facilities' current operational needs. Option 2 in yellow, that's titled Fiscal Year 24 Current Service Requirements. This option right sizes funding to meet current needs, including inflationary adjustments, and provides additional capacity to address the escalation and challenges we've seen over the last 5 years for park safety and camp cleanup, and increased park usage by residents. It adds resources to our park ambassadors, camp cleanup crew, trails program, and provides maintenance for additional new parks built with the 2018 bond as they come online. Recreation facility requirements include recreation and facility maintenance staff and seasonal labor needed to operate and maintain the newly expanded community center and pools. Option 3 in green is what we titled enhanced safety option. And this builds on the 24 service requirements scenario by providing greater park safety coverage, both geographically across the park system and 7 days a week security services to parks, with the addition of 2 more park resource officers and 2 more park ambassadors, as well as some enhanced security services such as nightly patrols, enhanced lighting, and cameras in parking lots and other needed locations. So after that work session in October, council directed us to survey the community about these options. And at a work session on January 9th, DHM consultants presented their findings from a survey they conducted in early December 2022. And the results showed support for a levy renewal with the strongest support for enhancements to park safety. However, the amount that most survey participants were willing to pay was closer to the original 2018 levy amount, rather than the additional amounts shown in both option 2 and 3, the green and the yellow. So after we received some council feedback on that date in January 9th and had some further one-on-one discussions with councilors, a 4th option was crafted, which includes a more modest overall levy amount increase, including an inflationary adjustment, adding park ambassadors and additional resources for camp cleanup, graffiti, and vandalism, as well as staff to operate the expanded community center and pools. The total net amount for this option is $4.3 million, and it's in the red column on your screen. And this is the city manager's recommendation. Now, this option does not provide additional funding for future parks built with 2018 bond funds. This will create a challenge at some point over the span of a renewed 5-year levy as more new parks requiring maintenance come online. And we know council is having discussions to form a revenue committee and hope if this option is chosen that funds for future developed parks is considered by that committee. Also, we were asked from discussions with councilors to consider including 2 additional EPD park resource officers within this option. The additional amount added in would total of $4.8 million net annually. And Twyla will also discuss a little bit more about the fiscal implications of both the $4.3 million option as well as adding the 2 officers in just a moment. And so this final slide just basically shows all 4 of the options that we've provided for your consideration. Before I hand it off to Twyla, Craig, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I just briefly, the only comments that I would add to the recreation components of this levy is to remind folks that the 3 recreational facilities that were chosen for renovation were based on community needs in those service areas, and that most of the programming operational funds will be targeting health and fitness in those areas. So with that, I'll pass it to Twyla for the numbers.
Yep, there we go. So good afternoon. So you've seen most of these slides before, but I wanted to give a high level overview and a reminder of what we use when we're modeling the levy. So again, our levy will expire this June 30th. And so the next 5 years would start in July FY24 through 28. We do choose a fixed dollar amount. So when we're talking about the levy, we'd be levying a gross amount each year in the same amount under any scenario. And this allows for growth over the 5-year period and to ensure that we can cover all service costs and have just a very small balance available at the end so that we can unwind the levy at the end of the period. We've used FY24 dollars for service level costs to ensure that we're starting at the right amount. And we've also assumed expenditure growth of 7% annually. So this allows for inflation and personnel cost growth over the 5-year period. We've also assumed a 94% collection rate for property tax collection. This is a bit on the conservative side, but it allows for economic uncertainty as we look over the 5-year period and sets us up for success over the levy period. And then the only difference this time was really the assessed value numbers we've used from the assessor. When we were here in October, we didn't have the FY23 numbers. So we now have what the we have now incorporated those. And, you know, the difference is really nominal. It's really more of a rounding effect. There weren't large swings in the data we were receiving. So, so we've incorporated all of those things in this modeling. Next slide. So this looks at the different options. The top three were the three we talked about in more detail in October, and I'm not going to go through those individually. We certainly can answer questions about those, but you can see the impacts there. So that column on the left which is the gross levy. That's the levy amount I was referring to. So that's the amount we actually have to levy in taxes at a gross level to support the service levels you see there for an annual service level amount. So if you look at the bottom two lines, option 4 is the safety and service scenario that Craig talked about. So we would have a gross levy annually of $5.33 million. It provides service levels over the forecast period of $4.33 million each year. The average tax rate is 26 cents with the cost to the typical homeowner of $67 a year. And then with the next line, the safety and service plus, this is the option that adds an additional 2 EPD officers, and that brings the gross levy up to $6.1 million with an annual service level of 4.88, including those additional two officers. The tax rate is 30 cents, and the cost to the typical homeowner is $77 a year. Next. I do like to talk a bit about compression. We saw a version of this slide in October. So this is updated based on the most current tables we've received for FY23. So as a reminder, our general government cap is $10. And you can see the pieces above to get the general government rate. I've removed our current levy and just put in for this illustration, the scenario 4 levy amount, the 26 cents. And then, as you know, Lane County has a levy that will begin July 1st at 16 cents. So that, all else being equal, we have just about less than 30 cents remaining under the cap. And as I'm sure you all know, earlier this week, the Board of Commissioners has put their public safety levy back on the May ballot, but that's at the current level. So that 55 cents you see there would remain, if that's successful, would remain at that level moving forward. And one more slide. And then just here, just so you can see the options, so you can see what's remaining on compression. Remember, compression is on a property by property basis. And so you can see the amount remaining under each potential scenario as we think about the general government cap and compression. And so about every 5 cents is about, when you think about what you could levy with adding an additional 5 cents, is about $875,000 when you think about increments left as you come up to that 30-cent cap. So that's compression. And with that, that's really what we had to share with you today. We wanted to leave time for lots of discussion, and we can certainly talk about any of these pieces. And as a reminder, in order to have something on the May ballot, we would need direction today to bring back something on the 13th. And with that, we'll turn it over.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have a couple of counselors in the queue, Emily and then Randy.
Just 2 pretty simple questions. On the levy type, the fixed dollar amount, so we get the same amount every year, but our costs are going to go up every year because of inflation in life. So how do we deal with that our service level is actually going to go down every year? We're going to have 2 more police if we go with the last one, but that still has the amount going down.
So thank you, Councilor Semple, for the question. So the way our modeling works when we use a flat rate, we take a look over the 5-year period and we incorporate all of those elements that I talked about. So increased costs over time and those pieces. And so we're setting that annual levy amount to cover that scenario so that we are confident under those parameters, the 7% growth, the collection rate, all of those other things, that we can cover that annual service level over the 5 years.
So would we be saving money from the first year to pay for the 5th year?
Right. So there is some fluctuation as you go through the 5-year period. That's correct when you use a flat rate levy like that. So there might be some balance in the beginning, but by the time you reach the end of the forecast period, you've actually spent the funding over time.
Okay. So, both, scenario 4 and 5 will also not meet the service level. We need to go up to option 3 to keep the service level what we have now.
To keep the 2018 service level?
Yeah, no, to keep, what we've been getting for the 2018, so it'll cost us more. To keep the service levels what we have now, we have to have more money.
Correct.
And that extra money only kicks in till we get to option 2, 3, 4, 5.
Correct.
But okay, I think that's good enough for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Randy, then Mike, then Alan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank all three of you for the presentation. I understand we need to do something here to maintain the level of service that the public expects and deserves. I also think it's incredibly important, as I said before, that we have our parks not only be safe, but feel safe. And I really like some of the infrastructure that you're looking at as well in lighting and whatnot to try and help with that piece. My concern is more along the lines of not knowing exactly what our reduction scenarios are going to look like as we get into the budget process. I just want to be careful that we are not asking the voters to renew a levy, and then all of a sudden we're pulling money out of the backside that then the levy is replacing, and then it just looks like a bait and switch. And we already have a credibility problem out there. We need to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences that diminish public trust and support any more than it already has been. So I don't know if that's something, Manager, you could speak to.
Sure, I can sort of generally. As we've talked through department by department, what we would be looking at in terms of reductions, we have had a very clear conversation about promises made, promises kept. And so people have been very thoughtful about where can we make reductions and still meet those promises the voters made. And I feel comfortable that what I'm putting together will support this.
Okay.
The caveat I would put there is that at the end of the day, I'll present this to you and to the budget committee, and you'll have to make some decisions about whether you support kind of the general approach or not. But I think all of us are trying to stay very true to the promises made.
Thank you. And I'm not asking for guarantees at this point. I just want the obvious pieces. And, if we go forward with this, that we're not reducing in these areas where it gets reduced further to backfill something else. At the same time, I understand that our budget deficit is to a point, probably nobody's going to be held harmless in the process. And so I just want to be aware of that and state my concern about that piece. It's not a lack of support. It's just, I want to be really careful how we proceed with this and how we message this to the community, because they are watching. I think that's it for now, but I may come back for a second round. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Mike and then Alan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank all of you for the presentation. First question is for City Manager. In preparing for this new budget biennium, I know from our previous conversation of ours, the 8% you asked everybody pretty much interdepartmentally to try and brainstorm. Taking off from what Randy asked, I'm going to ask it more specifically. So let's say we put out the levy and it passes. We're not going to backfill anything that came out of that 8% you've already asked them to try and do.
I want to make sure I'm being super honest.
Right.
So to my knowledge, the reductions that we're looking at are not being backfilled by this. I do think there are some ways where we've thought about both of these things together.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some things you can achieve in the levy that allow for efficiencies and allow for more revenue generation. So they're connected in the overall intent to get the biggest bang you can for the buck, but they're not intended to, I'm going to cut, X million dollars out of here and we're going to backfill it and you get the exact same thing. This is, what we're saying that the community will receive with the levy is what we'll deliver on.
On a service by service level or on a programmatic level? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question is for the city's attorney. Does council have the authority to pass this levy without sending it to the public vote?
No.
Good. Thank you. That's it.
All right, Alan, and then Matt and Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies for not being there in person. I'm in Washington, D.C., where it's a balmy 62 degrees in February.
Wow.
Been here dozens of times, never seen no snow in Washington, D.C. Where I'm coming from in this is that Eugene's highly value our parks. And the last time we put this levy out had a 66% approval rating vote. And I think it's very urgent that we keep what we have and not reduce it. I know it's a little dissonant and odd that we have a budget that we're doing cuts at the same time we're preserving this and potentially adding to it. And just to be clear, there are, City Manager, yes, there are cuts being made to parks, correct?
There's going to be proposed reductions to pretty much every service. And we've tried to be really thoughtful about how we do that, given what we've all heard are urgent community needs and values and things that people want to see us keep moving forward. So it's a very comprehensive package, which is why I'm proposing we do sort of a pre-budget meeting and spend a day actually going through it, because there's a lot to take in. Yeah.
Thank you. So what this does basically, it enhances our public safety at parks, and for those new things that we built, it allows us to program them, which were things that people voted to enhance in our park system. So this is not actually unusual in the budget cycle to do things like this. So I know it's a little bit odd, but it's not unusual, and I've done it before in the budgets I've been. The number one thing that people want to look at is public safety, or it was homelessness and housing for folks, and also public safety. So and increase public safety where we can. So the one thing I asked for in front of staff was, what could we add in terms of enhancing public safety, but not go all the way up to the top of the scale in terms of add backs and proposals, and that was the two officers. And so that's the safety and service plus. And what it does is it increases by about $730,000 a year, or 4 cents on 1,000 from 26 to 30, but it only increases the average person's bill to pay for all this by $10 a year, from $67 to $77. I think that's worth it. And I think most people will agree that it's worth it. And I do not think that that will cause a undue or a big decrease in support for this by adding in public safety. I think it actually will enhance it and make it better. Some of the things we saw in the survey was that when we added things in, people started hearing about them, especially public safety, the more people supported it. So I think this actually enhances the possibility of moving it forward. So I would encourage councilors to look at that safety plus service plus adding the two officers in and having that go forward. Thanks, Mayor.
Hey, thank you. Matt and then Jennifer.
Thanks, Mayor. If I can go to slide 3 on page 2, please. I want to preface this first by thanking staff, and city manager for the communications, the regular communications last week. I appreciate soliciting feedback, and when I get to slide 4, I'll underscore that you heard me loud and clear. My initial reaction when I look at these 3 options, I go right to the future developed parks piece and wonder how we could then, in the middle, option 2, the 2024 service requirements, how you could take those future development parks pieces and boost and bolster the safety piece. And you did just that. If you go to slide number 4, you made the investments in what I consider to be a nominal adjustment from 19 cents to 26 cents at a time when the county is going to be asking for a 50-cent renewal at nearly half that, by still leaning into the public safety piece. You've listened to at least this one counselor, and I really appreciate that. And I suspect colleagues had similar observations and longing for increased public safety presence at our parks as well. I ask this slide to be up though, because if you look at the park resources officers in the 2018 levy at 404,000 for 2, and then you look at the safety and service option, it's $450,000 for 2. Is that an adjustment there? Is that an inflationary adjustment? That's what I'm reading?
From what I understand, it's just a reflection of the increase in costs from EPD for personnel.
Okay. I am cautious when I hear Alan talk about the 66% approval rating and what history will remember as a blue wave midterm election year in 2018. The turnout was so high. Turnout in 2023 special election is going to be low. Granted, there'll be school board elections, but as I referenced at the top of this conversation, there's going to be, we're going to be competing, for lack of a better term, at least competing for resources, but we'll be on the ballot at the same time that the county's going out for that public safety jail renewal. That being said, I don't want to go north of 26 cents just because there's such a significant competing piece on the ballot. So I would urge colleagues to support the manager's recommendation. I appreciate the work and the collaboration.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank you all for meeting, offering to meet with us personally so we can have our questions answered. I really appreciated that. And for today's presentation, I also want to appreciate what the city manager said. I think the reason why our parks and our roads and the library, asks have been successful in this community is because we've focused so much on promises made, promises kept, right? Not only do we make sure we keep our promises, but we make sure they're verified. It's not just trust us. It's like there are people keeping track of this and making sure. So, folks I talk to in the community feel confident that when they vote for something, that it's going to go to what they have voted for. My only concern in all of this is around the future parks. We've done our best to address some of the areas that needed additional parks, and not being able to maintain them, would obviously be a tragedy, but I understand that we're making it very clear that that's a problem we need to solve, and it's out there, and we can work on it once it's been identified. So I feel confident that we can go with the city manager's recommendation, and that the park in my community, Stryker Field, that we will figure that out as we go along in our budget processes over the years, and that we'll find a solution to make sure that we take care of those investments that we've made. So I'm comfortable supporting it.
And just to clarify regarding Stryker Field, we have dollars in the current levy that covered maintenance for that. And so that's
the whole period
for strike. Well, not if it's not renewed, but I mean, we did include that park in there. So.
Oh, okay. Well, other people's parks are important too. So
Thank you. Lindsay.
Yeah, I want to just say thank you so much to staff. I know that this is incredibly difficult to balance the needs of our community with hoping that something will pass on the ballot. As much as I want all of the parks and in rec funding as we possibly can get. I know that we have to take a more conservative approach, but I think I agree with Alan that the public is really crying for clean and safe park experiences. And I would support the addition of those two positions to support that effort. So if that is on the table, I would support that, but I also support city manager's recommendation to keep it at that level. So I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation and see where we land.
Okay, thank you. I don't know, did you need a second round?
I don't think so. Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to sort of like put a fine point on this to make sure it's totally clear to me. So Jennifer's question and your response. So Maddie Reynolds, Stryker Field, the new downtown riverfront park, those would be covered in this option, either of the two, security and.
Right now, we're confident in this current package and being able to provide maintenance to Stryker, downtown riverfront, the Santa Clara Community Park. Maddie Reynolds is coming on a little bit later, and that's a little bit of a question mark for us. So that's kind of the break-off point.
Okay, thank you. That helps. And then Craig, your comment about the programming in the new facilities, could you just clarify that again about what's covered and what's not covered in this new safety and service option?
Yeah, most of it is simply based on the renovations and what they provided us programmatically. And so at Campbell, that 6,000 square feet of facility space, a lot of that intention was focused on health and fitness. And so we'll target that. And that's also similar in our aquatics renovations, is that Sheldon Pool incorporated a new warm water pool, and that's fitness wellness, as well as the expanded lap lanes and whatnot out at Echo Hollow. It won't be specific. I mean, there'll still be opportunities to expand hours that aren't necessarily health and fitness associated, but it's the target that we're focusing on as far as moving staff into a position to really elevate that service. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that helps. I just wanted it completely sort of spelled out again, just to be really clear. So I really appreciate the work you've done to try and thread the needle here between what we really want to make sure that we maintain and expanded offerings where we have created them and created that possibility, and also recognizing just the pressure we're all feeling around budget and how that will play out for the public. So I'm going to turn to Randy to put a motion on the table, and then I'm assuming that Alan may have an amendment to add the extra service level. Is that correct? Okay.
I apologize, Mayor. Could I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
Follow-up question that you prompted with your questions. I know that specifically maintaining the Amazon Canal is not called out in this. I've just assumed all along that's going to continue to be a part of the regular parks maintenance budget. You know, Craig, as you know, we've had some serious problems down there with behavioral issues and criminal activity, some very dangerous behaviors and actions. And I just want to make sure that we are keeping that wonderful recreation path open and as safe and clear sight lines down to the canal, and maintaining that as best we can.
Yes, sir. As we discussed, we intend on continuing that service level along the Amazon Canal that we talked about in the fall. And so I think we've got adequate resources to do that.
Thank you. And one more time, I just want to comment in front of my colleagues and the public that the neighbors in that area that were there the day you came down with staff to really listen and look at the problems, they really appreciate that, and they still comment on that. So thank you so much.
And we greatly appreciate their eyes and ears down there as well.
They're very concerned, and they should be. So thank you.
Okay, one more comment?
Yeah, if I could just offer a brief observation and a long held belief before I even got to council that, and I'm going to preface this, that I might float a work session should this pass before May, so we could better learn more about park ambassadors. My long held belief has been that the park ambassadors program mayor, though they do excellent work, they're trained in de-escalation, the first touch point, it's poorly branded. When we have to explain to someone what a park ambassador is and then ask for their vote in support, we're missing an opportunity to really better define what park ambassadors do. Are they park rangers? And so I think that at least myself, and I suspect others, the community at large could benefit from learning about the actual role and the day-to-day that the park ambassadors play throughout our community and our parks in particular. So please, just colleagues, don't be surprised if I float a work session, an informative work session, asking to learn more about the park ambassador program. I get it. I get their value to the community. And I think we could fly that to flagpole even more.
Okay, thank you for that heads up.
Yeah.
All right, Randy, I'll turn to you for a motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to direct the city manager to prepare a resolution for council action to refer to Eugene voters on the May 2023 ballot a 5.33 million per year operations and maintenance levy to fund at a minimum level of maintenance within parks, trails, rivers, recreation facilities, including increased park safety and security services and increased recreation programming at community centers.
Second.
Okay, I know Alan has his hand raised and Mike has raised his hand. So Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to enhance the safety portion of this levy. So I would ask if the maker of the motion would accept as a friendly the adding the 2 parks police officers outlined in the safety and service plus level levy described of $6.1 million as a substitute.
I would rather that be made as an alternate motion. So we can,
right.
Motion to amend.
Motion to amend, rather.
So moved.
Second. Oh, I can't second it. I can't. This is it.
What?
May I second if I was the person who seconded the
Yeah.
original motion?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
second.
Yeah. Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to lose my place after Alan and the queue
Right.
as well. This is a question for the city's attorney. I want to move to amend Alan's amendment, but I've been told on more than one occasion that you can't do that. And then I saw it done recently. Can you give me a ruling on whether I can do that or not?
You can, there can't be another one after that. So you can amend an amendment, but you can't amend an amendment to amend the amendment. So the long answer,
You can't say it fast.
so the short answer is you could move to substitute, you can move to amend. Yes.
I move to substitute for the current 0.19 rate. And if I get a second, I'll speak to it.
I'll second for point of discussion.
Thank you. Parks are very important to me. For different reasons. I co-chaired the county's parks levy for exactly that reason. But I believe the county's in a different position than the city is. So I felt more strongly about that. In this case, it's my support for parks that leaves me concerned that the more we increase this at a perilous time when there is cynicism in the city about council's referral here, we may be putting the levy at risk of failing. I saw the polling, and the numbers to me don't reflect then nor now that the situation has changed since that poll was taken. I don't have a lot of confidence that the higher amount and us increasing the levy will pass. And I'd like to at least see us maintain what we have. So that's the reason for my amendment.
Just, if I could just ask a point of clarity, the 0.19 won't maintain what we have because of the increased costs.
I appreciate the argument, Mayor, but
Just
I think
clarity,
it
just
will
want to make sure I heard
maintain
you
our
right.
current
Okay.
rate.
Okay.
And
Just
I
making sure I agree.
think I was speaking more to the dollars than the
Gotcha.
services
Okay.
provided. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was point of clarification.
Yeah.
The original motion at 5.33 million per year doesn't track with the numbers in front of us. Am I to understand that's actually the 5.23 2024 service requirement motion?
No, No,
No.
you haven't.
So the motion, the main motion that is on the table is for the gross levy amount of 5.33 million per year, which is the safety and service, the option 4, option D.
Okay.
The second motion, the first motion to amend of Counselor Zelenka's was to amend the 5.33 to be 6.1 million to become that safety and service plus. And Counselor Clark, I understand your motion to be a motion to substitute for 3.9 million gross levy amount, which would be that 0.19 rate. So that is currently the motion on the table is Counselor Clark's 3.9 million gross.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to amend from Council Clark on the table. Oh, yes, Emily.
I'm need more clarification, the chart with the 4 colors. Where does either of these proposed motions fit into these charts? Because I need to know which things are going up and down from. I'm interested in keeping the service that we have now. Of course, I would like more, but I think that a slight increase to keep the amount of service has a pretty good chance of passing, not as much as the lower one, of course. But I'm confused as where we get this 5,330,000 because it's not on any of the colors. And I'm also confused, hate saying I'm confused, and I'm searching about how the extra 2 police fit into this and how much a police officer actually costs, because I need some clarification, please.
So the numbers on the color charts are the net numbers from the levy that actually create the service level. And then there's some additional dollars that Twyla can explain and that create the gross amount.
I think what you're really looking for is if you go to the, if you're looking at the tax impact slide, which is on page 4, the top, is where we're talking about the average tax rate. And if you cross that over to your color chart, I would go back to this page. And I just think we have to like, what she's trying to figure out is what is going up and down on the FTE for across, but we don't actually have a chart, one label that has the safety and service, right?
Before I vote on the motion, I would like to know what the numbers are of what I'm voting and which things are being maintained, which things are being increased, which things are being increased even more with the 2 proposals on the table.
Yeah, so you're going to have to go to multiple charts for that. There's not a single one. I could walk you through where you can find that, but I think the actual safety plus is only in this PowerPoint. It's not in the printed copy.
So, and Counselor Semple, if you go to page 2 and the funding, if you're looking at
Page 2 of page.
I'm sorry.
Plus isn't in here at all.
Right. But it would literally be this orange with 2 more police officers, I think is what she's.
Right.
And 2 police officers is another $1 million.
No, what you're seeing, that differential there at the bottom is the net versus gross, and what Craig was providing you were the net numbers, and what Sarah was showing you was to crosswalk that over. This chart right here sets you up with the net and the gross numbers, so you can see, and the gross numbers are, and Twyla, jump in here. I mean, that's like servicing the levy, and there's costs associated with that.
Right, and just ensuring we have revenue over the 5-year time period. So on the chart that the city attorney was just showing you on the bottom, if you look at the service level, column, the safety and service is the 433, which is the safety and service on the orange.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. And so the next line down, the safety and service plus, the difference between the 433 and the 4.88 is the additional cost of adding the 2 additional officers.
So
And we-
go ahead.
So we don't have a one of these colored charts that show that, but it would basically be the orange column, adding 2 more officers two officers, and they're a higher cost than the officers that are than the resource officers, is my understanding.
I'm gonna stand up and just like use this like a whiteboard. If you're just looking at the service, this is the motion that Randy put on the table. Alan amended that to do this plus two more officers, so that number goes up. We don't have that on the printed slide, so Randy's motion, Alan's amendment, and then Mike's amendment or substitute is this.
Just straight up.
What's that? It's
Just
the
going.
2018. And the reason and what you're pointing out is important because the 2018 levy funded, for example, 2 park resource officers at 404. That's not actual real-time 2024 costs. So all of this is going to have to get reallocated, and you'll see a service reduction because it's more, we can't get these things for that number, but that's how it was allocated. So Randy's motion, Alan's motion, and this motion essentially set that financial number.
Okay, thank you. That helped a lot.
Okay, I have Randy and then Mike back at you. Do you wanted to speak to this?
Oh, yes, thank you. You know, I look at this, I fear what Mike is saying is true, but I'm hoping it's not. He makes a good point. Likewise, Alan makes a good point of aspiring for what we should be going for and what we really need to make this all effective. So, you know, it's kind of that worst fears, best outcome dilemma and trying to find that space in between. And that's what I really think the proposed motion does, is it kind of splits the baby. There's going to be potentially more risk by going for it, but it's also going to give the public what I think they're asking for. And I'm just hoping the public can look past some of the current frustration and look at our parks and what we need to do to preserve their utility, their safety, their function for this community and for all of our constituents. Thank you.
Jennifer. Oh, sorry, Mike, and then Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Sarah, I'm not picking on you, and I hate to send you back to the whiteboard here, but with the 404 that you just pointed out, was it 404?
Mhm.
Yeah. Park safety and, okay. Is that police officers or is that? So in other words, we've cut 8%. Can you show me where that, or
So
forgive me, let me just say, you haven't cut it yet. It will be a part of our budget coming up, and I hate to put you on the spot early, but if there's going to be cuts across the board in your budget presentation when it finally arrives, can you tell me where it's going to come from? Because it seems to me that although we're not backfilling, we're adding, with the other motion, we're adding police officers and cutting another part of park services. Can you help me understand what it is we're cutting?
we're, you're asking for it's a really long list of different things. There's
Okay.
not any patrol officers in my proposed budget cut.
Okay.
And I hate to even say it as a budget cut, because that feels, it's more of a, we're having to reduce and shift where some of our resources go to address the things that we're seeing on the street and that you're talking about,
Right.
and what the public sees. And so I know you're not asking, but the safety and service, we talk about one of our leadership competencies being the sort of now and later approach, that we're constantly always thinking kind of 10 years out when we're making decisions now. The safety and service element is a challenge for us, because we're knowingly shifting to what we know the public needs now. They need more safety and security and cleanliness in parks. And we're acknowledging that there's some future developed park later needs that we're having to not build in, because we need to build back that sort of confidence in the parks and in the
Yeah.
system. So,
Well, for the record, I just want to say I have every confidence, even though the 404 number isn't accurate to today's costs, I have every confidence in your ability to maintain that safety element in current budget if it's renewed only at 0.19. Even though that doesn't bring us to 4 officers, it keeps us at 2. You're talking about your ability to shift into the future, and I think I have every confidence in your ability to do it. My strong concern, as I mentioned, is that if we increase the amount we're asking people to pay in a parks levy, at the same time we're cutting other things across the city, and under the current environment politically, I think we're going to get a no as an answer. And I'd rather be able to say, no, we're not adding anything new. No, we're not adding anything that we need in further while we cut other parts of the city and ask you for a bunch more money. Rather say, we're going to make what we have work, and we're not asking you for any more money. We're just asking you to continue on with what you've been doing to support parks. And I think that's a wiser way to approach the ballot that we're looking at.
So just to be really clear, if we choose that, and I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, and I didn't want
We're going to,
really,
if we say to the voters, we're asking you to continue doing what you've been doing at 19 cents, we'll also need to say, and here's what you will get for that in 2024, and it will not be what you got in 2018.
Right.
It'll be a reduced package.
But it
So
won't
people will
cost
see
anymore.
a service level change. Yeah.
Right. And I think people expect that. I think they expect us to do that under the current economic environment as well. I think that the general public would expect for us to be able to do a little bit more with less, as so many people have to. And under the inflationary pressures people are feeling today, for us to ask them for so much more to do the same thing, I think we'll have a very negative outcome at the polls. That's why I am making this motion.
Okay, Jennifer and then Alan.
Thank you. So I'm going to agree with Randy. I think that one of the things in this community that we can all agree on is we love our parks and we want them to be safe and clean and usable. So I really agree with what Councilor Groves has said is I'm uncomfortable asking for a large amount, but I think that the safety and service, the package that you put on the table is a good compromise, right? It gets us some of that additional safety. We're not asking for the full amount we need to continue our services. So we are tightening our belt a little bit, and that's unfortunate. But I think the feedback we got about how the vote might go warrants, doing this kind of readjustment of our ask. So I'm going to support it. I think it's a smart move.
Okay, Alan, one more comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I don't support a cut in services here. My proposal, which if this goes down, which will be on the table, is that we will add 2 sworn police officers, not ambassadors, but real police officers. And they will be 2 dedicated police officers to parks, making them safer, and so people can enjoy them and feel safe when they're there. It'll increase safety. And also, one of the reasons I did that was because when we looked at the survey results, one of the few things that actually increased yes votes was making sure that that the parks were safer. When we added that in and people understood it, more people supported the measure. So that reason, and it's not that much more, but I think it will be a significant increase in safety outcomes that we will see and how people feel about their parks. So I think in the near future, this public safety is a big issue in this community, and we are going to be looking for places to increase public safety. This should be one of them. So I encourage people to not support this motion because I'm not, but support the one that I made.
Okay, Emily, one more comment?
It's really unfortunate that we have to do this before we start talking about the budget, because we're asking people to vote on something when it's isolated. They don't know the bigger picture of what things we're going to have to sacrifice. So that puts it in sort of even more of an unknown land. For another 2 police officers, what are we expecting them to do? There's a lot of parks. Will they go to every park every day? Will they wait for the ambassadors or someone else to call them? I'm just wondering how much coverage we're really gonna get. Not that I don't think we need 2 officers citywide, and not that I don't think we have a lot of troubles in the parks, but are they gonna be there to kick out campers? Are they gonna be there to make sure nobody litters or smokes or any of the other ordinance we have in our parks that are not enforced, like drinking, smoking, anything, yelling at each other? So how much more safety are we gonna get for those 2 officers? And I know you don't know that, but you know, just kind of an idea. And this proposal still decreases certain things from the 2024 service requirements. So I feel that it really is a good compromise. And although I appreciate the desire for more officers, I do too, I'm not sure that this is the place to get the funding for them. And so that's part of my concern. What am I going to actually tell the people they're going to get for this much more money, which still won't keep us up to the same level of service as we have now? So I'm inclined to support the amended motion.
Okay, with that, we actually
Unless
have,
there's a little answer to that question.
okay, so we are actually have Mike's proposal to amend on the table, which would be to take it back to that original 2018 dollar amount.
3.9 million.
3.9 million, 19 cents.
Could I clarify? My motion was the rate, not the dollars. I don't know the differentiation in today's dollars.
So, and what I'm using is this
Is
chart.
that today's dollars?
Yes, this has been
Okay.
updated today's.
3.9 is today's dollars. for
Is
that rate.
19 cents before was 3.15.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, so all in favor of that motion to amend, please raise your hands.
To go back to the lowest.
We're going to go back to the 2018. This is Mike's proposal to go to this base amount, but base
Only
rate.
with my hand up here.
Okay, yeah. Can we have Randy, Mike and Greg? So 2 in favor, opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Okay. So that goes down. So now we're back to Alan's motion to amend, which is to add the additional 2 police officers. All in favor of that motion to amend, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that goes down. So now we're back to the original motion put on the table by Randy. All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. And opposed, 1. So that passes. Thank you very much. Thank you all for that deep conversation about a challenging issue. We really appreciate your thoughtfulness in this proposal. Yeah.
And we'll be back on Monday.
And we'll be back on Monday. Okay. Thank you. With that, we're adjourned.
Stay tuned.